It is Sunday night. It's baseball week. We're talking NFBC main events, talking all kinds of news and notes, and talking a week one preview. Baseball is here. We're talking about it all up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Happy Sunday night, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Sunday nights by Jeff Erickson. If you could please rate and review the podcast, we do really appreciate that. It helps people find us, all that kind of good stuff. Also, we appreciate FANTRAX for the sponsorship of the podcast. Thanks to them for that as well. Jeff, it's been a whole, 26 hours since I've seen you. How's everything?
Great. Whirlwind weekend. Still recovering from it, but it's been awesome. It was, as always, an incredible weekend. Felt needed more than ever this weekend. I'm so glad we were able to pull it off. And I did the double. I played the auction on Friday and then the main on Saturday morning. And it was amazing being able to do that. Did a few things differently than I expected in the main, especially. Uttered a couple of names I haven't uttered all season long in a draft. I mean, I've talked about everybody, but, a couple of guys that didn't expect to land on my rosters and did. But we'll talk about that. But, yeah, great weekend.
It's really funny how that works too. Like you spend all this time prepping and then a draft goes a weird way and all of a sudden someone's there you don't expect, or someone you like gets snagged in front of you. You gotta adjust really quick. I had an online championship this week and I randomly ended up with a Jacob deGrom share, and I don't really love him at the price, but he kind of fell a little bit. The guy I was gonna take went right before me, and then I thought someone else was available and he wasn't. So I kind of a little bit of a panic pick, but it's still, it was still the right price. So it's just funny how as much as we could do it, every once in a while some weird guys end up in your team.
Yeah. By the way, I appreciate that you showed up in uniform for this podcast there.
You like that? No spoiler in my first round pick.
Yes, I like that there. Good stuff.
Yeah, two Reds in my top 8 picks, Jeff. I guess it really is our Reds this year.
Our Reds, let's go.
I love it.
It's never going to happen. Nothing bad happened today. We won't talk about that either. But
and you've got your Kansas City Moose shirt on. Very good. We saw our friend Anthony Gialdi in Vegas, so it's very applicable as well.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, let's we do have baseball this week, Jeff. So I guess we're going to do a little bit of a week one preview, a little quick FAAB recap. Obviously, not our normal big FAAB breakdown, just because there was very little FAAB. Although some of the 12-team online championships that drafted in February had some closers available, some emerging starters. We'll talk about the DDA Fuentes bid in one of your online championships. There was a little bit of activity, but we'll get to that. But week one's a little bit of a tough week this year. It's a half week, as it has been recently. The starting in the middle of the week. We have a Wednesday night game between the Giants and the Yankees. A fun matchup, at least there in the NFBC. At least, I know a lot of people play a lot of different formats. The NFBC, that game is what they call a free look, so you can watch that game, set your lineup afterwards. So if Logan Webb or Max Fried get smoked, you can take them out. It doesn't affect you. If Aaron Judge goes 0 for 4, make sure you get him out for Thursday, Friday, and then they don't Wednesday, Thursday, they don't play Thursday. They'll get back in for Friday through Sunday. So you can play some games. Just make sure you know the rules there. Make sure you know that game is the lineups do not lock until the Thursday game starts. So just a heads up, kind of how they work it with the football games. With I guess it's like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this year with week one in football. But same kind of way where there's still drafts going on, so they don't lock those games as of yet. But tough is the half weeks are always tough. There's only most teams play 3 games. There's 4 teams that play 4, but that means most 40% of the starters don't start this week, and that's tough to do when you're trying to set 9 guys in your starting pitching lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such a weird week, the scheduling with those interleague games where some of those series are 2-game series. Some of those, there's some teams not playing on Friday. The Yankees and Giants are playing Wednesday, but not Thursday, Friday and Saturday, but not Sunday. Yeah. It's such a early season quirky schedule things. I don't love it when I see a team off on a Friday or Sunday. It feels wrong.
I think weirder to me this week is there's 4 teams that don't play on opening day on Thursday. They play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That just seems like an odd. Wrong. Like the A's in Toronto don't play till Friday. It's really weird.
Yeah, why? But why?
I guess they're in a dome, so you take the weekend off and you get the weekend game for fans. But opening day is going to sell out anyway. Why would that matter?
Yeah, this is. The 15-15 thing forces you to do so many different weird things with the scheduling works. I think there should be the players should strike just on that. Oh no, just kidding. I don't want the players.
Jeff,
to lock out.
No. We can't make any of those jokes until September. We have to talk about that. So It's not. We had a good weekend in Vegas. There was a lot of talk of will this weekend happen next year. So we don't want to go there quite yet. But with this half week, like you mentioned, the quirky schedule. It's something at FBC where you make moves twice a period. If someone like the A's doesn't play the first period essentially because the first period is only Wednesday, Thursday. So you got to get those guys out. If you have a Nick Kurtz, you want to take him out, and then you got to get 3 games on the weekend. But just make sure you look at that schedule. Some teams that play 3 on the weekend, some teams play 2. So it's a pretty big edge. An extra game when you're only playing 3 is pretty big. So more than anything, just make sure you take a look at that lineup and, stack your Thursday offensive guys and then get your Friday offensive guys back into.
Exactly right. So yeah, we have to press every single edge. We don't have any early games. Although I guess if you're drafting Wednesday night, is there another Thursday morning series of drafts? Or one last main? Is there something like that?
I believe there's one super early Thursday morning.
Yeah. So hey, we'll get the rogue drafter in that one there. Rogue drafts out there though, Scott. We at least 2, one of which you were in. Mini,
yes,
not quite full on rogue, but at least 3/4 rogue, I think.
It was an interesting draft. When we talk about my main event, we'll talk about the guy at Team 1, that the Shohei, and I don't think he can fill a lineup because he has so many guys in the minor leagues or injured, and just kept taking him. It was a really, really, and he was weird. He's the only guy that was not in the room. So he was online. We had 14 people live and one guy in line. Just the math of making all the 15 team leagues. So it's there's our friend Anthony Jolly right there. So there's a 6 a.m. Pacific draft on Thursday morning. So pretty fun there. But so there's still drafts going on. Do you have any drafts left, Jeff?
I'm seeing if I can get one more beat Jeff Erickson. We'll see about that. Haven't heard back if they have room for it or not. But if we'll do that.
Take all the guys you have no shares of.
I've done the FOMO draft before. I'm going to do a FOMO podcast with Fred Zinke on Tuesday. Where
nice.
About some of that. Go by position, our FOMO cast. I've found that the FOMO drafting method is not a good drafting method. There's a reason why I don't have those players to begin with. And,
right.
Unless it's because I haven't had a top 5 pick all year. That's another story for another day. But
I told you my last main is Wednesday night I'm going to draft during the Giants Yankees game, and I got pick 13. I just wanted a top 6 pick, and I just
you got 13.
Didn't get there either.
I can give you a roadmap of what not to do later on than today here. So
beautiful. Look forward to that. 4 teams play 4 games this week. Just a quick scheduling note. The Guardians are at the Mariners for 4 this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, obviously. And then the LA Angels of Anaheim at Houston for 4 also. So those teams have full schedules. The two teams we really focus on with home games, the Rockies and the A's, are both on the road this week. So no Sacramento games, no Colorado games this week.
Yeah. So we ease into the schedule. No Tropicana Dome games either, though, for the first week and a half, as they're kind of easing the Rays into that. So the Rays start off in St. Louis, Milwaukee, Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
They have 10 games on the road to start off their season.
Yeah, they don't have a home game until April 6th then, or April 7th. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Was the Trop not ready? Do we know? Is it fully? It's good to go, right?
I think they were just doing it just in case. They're kind of setting it that way. There's
probably like a tractor pull or something in that place or something crazy.
Such disdain for this for rural America, Scott.
Have you been in the Trop?
No, of course not.
You would have disdain for the. I went to one game there. It's the worst, and I've been to a lot of games in Oakland. It's the worst place I've seen a baseball game.
Yes, I just what did tractor pulls do to you though? I mean, come on. Yeah, just sitting there.
I just kind of visualize a tractor pull tearing up that turf in Tampa Bay. Just kind of fit.
Yeah. But I will say, just there's some the scheduling quirk thing is interesting. Remember the year the Red Sox won the World Series and then started off on the West Coast? That kind of was what happened.
I do remember that. Yeah.
And then the Braves last year had to go 7 games on the road to start off against San Diego and the Dodgers. You got to watch those teams. Like the Yankees get the Giants and the Mariners on the road to start off with as well. Not exactly murderer's row comparatively, but still just kind of like a little bit of a trap in terms of scheduling, in terms of just starting off out of place. Yankees don't even train in the West Coast, and then they have to go all the way out there to start.
I wonder if getting it out of the way the last week of March is kind of a good thing for those teams, rather than traveling across in the middle of summer when you're tired.
Yeah.
See Paul Sport in the chat. Paul, we missed you this weekend. I always love when Paul's in Vegas, but good to see him there. But I did miss him in Vegas this year. But let's talk a little bit of FAAB. I think the interesting guys were there was a few offensive players out there, but nothing super interesting. A little bit of a Griffin Conine filling in for Kyle Stowers. But I think the interesting parts were the earlier 12s had a number of starting pitchers, kind of young guys or guys who kind of fell into spots. Johan Oviedo, Matthew Liberatore, Kyle Harrison, Rhett Lowder, and then a not young guy, Max Scherzer, was only 24% rostered in 12s. Some interesting names, though. Those are guys that I was looking at in 15s, wanted to draft in the main event, was interested in, had targeted a few of those. Any of those guys you like? Anything you think they're worth picking up in a 12? They were all under 50% rostered in the 12-team online championship.
Yeah, I've been on Harrison. The the Milwaukee Secret Sauce pitcher of the year, maybe.
Yep.
Although who knows, it could be Brandon Sproat. Point is, I'm in on the concept of those guys. I'm in on Rhett Lowder a little bit because of the 2 starts he gets in the first full week. If it kind of materializes, that's an asterisk with the Reds because of their 6 starters, but only 5-man rotation setup that they have going here. Kind of curious to see how they're going to make that work. So that's something I'll be watching for a little bit. But Oviedo, he's the guy that's kind of maybe keeping down our guys Connolly early, Peyton Tolley. I think when I looked this afternoon, they hadn't made that move yet. Have they actually made that official?
I think it's still TBD officially, but I think everybody believes it's going to be Oviedo. It seems like it's going to be. It seems pretty locked in, but they have not fully announced it. No.
Yeah, that's something I want to watch for there. I mean, I have a lot of exposure to early. I have one share of Peyton Tolley. So yeah, I'm paying attention to all these guys. But they're all interesting. I mean, there's a reason why they kind of gained a lot of helium, I guess, but gained a lot of paying attention to. Young whippersnapper Max Scherzer also gaining that helium there too. Did he throw like 71 pitches in his life?
I mean, looks like fully ready to go.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting to me too.
Since we're talking Oviedo, and I opened up the RotoWire projected pitchers chart, really quick plug for that. If you're on RotoWire, the probable pitchers chart is the best in the business. I heard it from like 12 different people this weekend. I don't work at RotoWire, so I can say it. I'm not plugging it. It is it's the best thing. They update it like continually during the day. If you play in a fantasy league, make sure you do that. You can also link it with my leagues on there. You can like see your leagues, who's starting where. It is it's the best probable pitcher tool in the business.
Yep. Thank you for that. And I'm actually going to pull that up for everybody here so they can get see what it looks like too. Because the thing I really want you guys to check out too, when you go ahead and do that, is I want you to go ahead and take a look at sync it with my leagues. Yep. My leagues is like, it's the greatest. I've got it. So I'll pull it up here just with my main event league. I've got that here. I'm going to go ahead and share the page here. You guys can kind of take a look at it.
Look at your tech work here, Jeff. I'm impressed.
Oh, I know. Well, hey, I've been told I don't sell enough, so I'm going to sell a little bit more here. So the cool thing here about the probable pitchers is, so you got the NFBC main event leagues. Your guys show up in green, like that there. And the other cool thing is when there's someone that's a free agent, you can decide whether you want to pick them up or not.
Yep.
And so that's the other cool thing. Now, keep in mind, I didn't set it for the right date, so we'll go ahead and do that as well. So set it for opening day, and you can see again. Now you can see who's available, who's got 2 steps on a certain day. You can set it. So if you want to set it for next Monday, you want it because that's the chances are when you're playing in a competitive league like the NFBC main event or just your competitive home league, you want to find out who's got 2 steps and is available. So legend.
And I assume that'll link with every major fantasy service there is.
Yeah. Yes, it will.
That's awesome.
Yep. And so people can check that out for themselves. So rotowire.com, use promo code YouTube15, get 15% off any subscription to RotoWire. And you can use our projected starters grid, sync it up with your leagues. And it's really easy to sync in my leagues. If you need any help with that, just hit me up on Twitter or just email me and I'll be happy to walk you through the process there. But go check it out. It is one of those things that I really feel passionately about. It's a really great tool to help you win your league.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm someone that has used different projected starter grids over the years, and it's definitely the best one, and it's great. And like you said, you can see free agents, and if you're looking for 2 steps next week, you just scroll down and you can see all the guys who are starting twice that are not taken in your league. So,
yep.
A guy I wanted to ask you about though, Matthew Liberatore. Your friend James Anderson of RotoWire is obviously a really smart prospect guy, pitcher guy. Had Dustin McComas on the other day. They were talking about Liberatore, saying really good things, changing some stuff. He's 26 now. He's gotten some buzz. I was definitely interested as I looked a little closer. This is someone that was a first round pick by the pick of the Rays in 2018. So it's been a while, but it seems like he's really worked stuff. Looked really good in the spring. 34% strikeout rate, 3.6% walk. I think it was like 14 strikeouts to 1 walk, 180 ERA, only 15 innings. But someone that like went in there, knocked down the door for the Cardinals, earned that job. I'm super interested in see what we're going to see from him this year. I was definitely in on him in any kind of 12-teamer if he was available this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I ended up getting him in 1 league so far. All I have left is reserve draft in XFL where he might actually be available, because we did that draft in November, and it's a keeper league too. So there's a lot of interesting things. And then another keeper league trying to see if I get one more online championship. We'll see about that. But yeah, absolutely. Fun guy to maybe have, and he happens to be available in some of my leagues, so I probably will jump in on that.
Yeah, he's someone that I was. He got jumped really early in my main event. I think he was near the min pick in my main event. There was Connolly early was the min pick, and in 34 mains, he was taken earliest in my main event. I was not pleased about that. Someone I had targeted too, but it's a tough part with those 15s. There's a lot of people who are on the same players, and they in those live main events, people are willing to jump for their guys.
Yeah, so you want to sometimes take the spring training results with the appropriate grain of salt, but 14-1 K to walk in 10 innings. That has my attention for sure.
And there's a lot of articles about him changing up his pitch mix, and I think he's pitched maybe the different side of the rubber. There's all kinds of stuff. He's changed a lot of stuff, so it might be a real actionable thing. Obviously, we'll see when that happens. I think he's pitching the opener, right?
Yep, against the Rays.
Yeah, so he's going opening day, which is fun. That's they're not a lot in that rotation. I get it, but so yeah, against the Rays opening day in Busch, that should be fun. But some other guys that were mildly interesting were some of the guys that maybe have slid into maybe some closer situations as the spring has gone on. The top guy was someone that was only 56% rostered in 12 teamers, and he was picked up in every main event. Obviously, is Paul Sewald in Arizona. What's your interest level here? Obviously, Sewald is no spring chicken. He's 35 now. Has done it before. If you want to go with that, he had 34 saves in 2023. Had done some closing work for Arizona. Were you in on Sewald at all? He's looked really good in the spring. Hasn't walked anybody in 7 innings. Do you think he's the guy there? Do you think there is a guy there? What do you think about the Sewald ads that were kind of being made this week?
I don't think there's the guy. I think he could be a guy. Look at one of my favorite stats is that Torey Lovullo hasn't had a 20 save closer since like 2018, and it was Brad Boxberger. So that just he's been around. A, he's been around for a while. B, Sewald was one of those pitchers before under Torey Lovullo. So he's had plenty. We've had the Paul Sewald Torey Lovullo experience before, and it hasn't always been great. Remember, they traded for him. The year that they traded for him, he did have a 34 save season.
Yeah.
But he got 13 of those saves with Arizona. He got 21 with Seattle. So it was close. But then the next year, when he had a full year in Arizona, he ended up with 16 saves, got hurt, I think, wasn't very good. And then came back, was spent last year in the wilderness. He was hurt most of the year. I have a hard time trusting here. So sure, Adam, but this is one of those, and I have a league where I'm going to be chasing saves all year. Sure, Adam, but don't break the bank on this one here. This is like, okay, maybe, I'd say 5% of your FAAB budget at most. I don't think I'd want to go much higher than that because we haven't had that official declaration. He's just, Torey Lovullo said he's a potential closer candidate. He's been throwing the heck out of the ball. We have other guys that have been doing the exact same thing. So if out of fairness to the group, I probably won't say anything until opening day. Attaboy, Torey. Don't ever change.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd even go probably lower than 5%. I think even a 12-teamer, definitely a few bucks on him. You want to get it before it happens. And a 15-teamer, I think he's definitely worth drafting. He was definitely moving up in main events this week. He went, I'm trying to look here. He went in the 17th round of my main event. People that, if you didn't have a second closer, and you got in those late rounds, you kind of had to do something. So he was definitely someone that's taking his starters. Question in the chat, Jeff. Question for both of you. Name one keystone player or teams that could really make your team surge this year.
Christian Yelich. I have
all right.
A ton of exposure to him. Probably not the greatest, but I just felt like he was underpriced all the time, and it's because he's UT. I get it. Well, that, and I think the distrust of the health, but he was healthy last year. He's going to regress from 29 homers, but if he regresses to 22, I think I'll be just fine. If he regresses to 15, well, then we might have a problem. But I have a lot of Yelich this year.
Will he play outfield at all? Will he get eligibility at some point?
Played 19 games there last year. It's possible.
Oh, 19. That's brutal.
Yeah. Yes, it was very brutal. But then again, that's what kept him healthy. So
true. I don't like this question from Anthony because he's in my main event on a Wednesday night. So, but I will. So I've only drafted one of my 2 main events, so I still up in the air. But a couple of guys for me, Nick Lodolo is big for me. We'll talk about him in a second. He had a blister today, which I don't love. Wilyer Abreu is big for me. I kind of just circle around in every draft and decide to take him in draft. I love Wilyer Abreu. And then Justin Crawford in Philadelphia. I'm a big fan of this guy. I just think he can hit. I think he's an average and stolen base guy. So he's won a job in Philly. Sounds like he's going to start most days. I think that he in the middle rounds, I think he's kind of a stolen base key guy. And I think that if he can just stay in the lineup, and I think he'll hit enough for an average, and he will, and play enough defense, I think he's going to be a big stolen base boon in the middle of drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel you on that one there for sure.
He was one of those guys that I just was like taking 2 rounds early in the main event because I just wanted to get him. So I jumped him up a couple rounds, and I wasn't even worried about it at that point.
Yeah. I'll give you one more. And this should not be a surprise given how many times I've talked about it, but Kevin McGonigal. Got him in Maine. I've got him in a lot of places this year. I will continue to try to keep taking him in a lot of places if I could. I do have a lot of exposure to him, and I've been talking him up as well a lot. So yeah, McGonigal is definitely one of those guys. Annoyed that I didn't get him in AL Tout Wars, but I got him in the main event at least, so I got that going for me.
I took him and Weatherholt in my online championship today.
Oh, you got them both.
I did because I had 2 shortstops. My thought is Weatherholt's can play second base, but I think I'm going to slide him over to second pretty quick. I think it'll work out pretty nice if he works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So one of the things you can do, by the way, too, is with my leagues, you import all your leagues. It'll tell you, like, when you look up you go to my players, and you can see your exposure level across multiple platforms. I know NFBC has a tool for their platform specifically, but also when the player gets hurt, or when you're trying to find out whether a player is available real quick in all of your leagues, do that real quick, and you can see where he's a free agent, where you have him, all that kind of good stuff.
We now have a second person in my main event in the chat asking who I would draft in the 13th slot if I was in the main event. Good try, Steven. Good try. Well,
like the little SNL bit there. About the U.S. Iraq war. Where are your tanks and can I count them?
Amazing. So that was me. So you see Anthony in the chat. I gotta say real quick, it's so fun to see everybody in Vegas. It's such a fun weekend. It's fun to see everybody. It feels like it's been a month where you see everybody. It feels like you're kind of slide rack in all the fun conversations. Everybody's so nice and fun out there. It's just really a great atmosphere.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a few news and notes before we do talk about our main event drafts. I want to make sure we leave enough time for those. Some interesting names that got sent down this weekend, Jeff. As we were about to draft, some news was happening. Dylan Cruz got sent down, and Jasson Dominguez. We kind of figured that was going to happen with Dominguez, but I think Cruz was a pretty big surprise. He was someone who's taken like the 13th, 14th round in drafts just the day before he got sent down. Obviously moved way down. What are your thoughts on Cruz? He was really bad in spring training. So it's one of those things where I think, if he was just okay, he probably would have made the team, but he was so bad. He hit a .03, 39% strikeout rate. Again, only 34 plate appearances, but still really bad. No home runs. I think they just want to see a little bit something from him after the struggles of last year. And I don't know, he might be down for a bit while they wait to see what happens. I mean, it could be a few weeks, but I'm not counting on him being up anytime soon unless he really kind of knocks the door down.
I'm with you on that. So I made this comment to you. I hate it when something bad happens to a player you weren't on to begin with before your biggest drafts. Like, could that have waited till Sunday? Because I wasn't on Dylan Cruz to begin with, and I thought the price was too high for the risk that he carries. He hasn't learned how to hit. He just hit 208 last year. The strikeouts were really high. He had little moments here and there, and then he really tanked. And that's something that the Nationals as a whole did last year. Remember how bad James Wood was over the second half as well.
Yeah, good point.
I think he's just a massive batting average risk, and he didn't show any signs that he was going to be any better in spring training. They have a new staff, and I don't know how that translates to their instructors in the minor leagues and things of that nature. But I think the Nats have been really bad at developing players for a while now. And Cruz, it wasn't necessarily pure strikeouts. You look at him in spring training, it was 32% in spring training, only 23% at the big league level, but he just never has been able to get over that hump. A lot of ground balls, over 50% of ground balls the last 2 years. I need to see it. I need to see something more with him there. And I think just having some success for a while might be the best thing for him. Just letting him continue to fail up at the big league level is probably not going to do anything. And so, I get it. Like, why are the Nationals? Why are you wasting playing time on Jacob Young or Joey Wiemer for that matter? But at the same time, you want to have your best players out there.
Yeah, and you're right. Like a month of hitting, a $110 was probably not going to do him any good anyway in the major league level. Suddenly you get confidence issues. Yep. Their new manager, Blake Patera, is 33.
Yeah,
that is young.
That is very young. But that. Is that any relation to Salbuterra?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Reds catcher at one point in time there. I don't know.
I do remember who that is, but yeah, I don't. I know he's married to someone named Caroline, but I don't have a Salbuterra link. Sorry.
Okay, well, I can figure that out at some point in time, but I'll get my crack staff on that. Please do.
And then a couple of guys, we talked about Dominguez, and I think Dominguez we expected, but Cruz, a couple of guys who did make the team that maybe we're going to be questioned. We talked about Justin Crawford a little bit, and then we also talked about Marcelo Mayer made the team. He was very questionable a couple weeks left. It sounded like he was right on the roster edge. There was a note that he's made the roster, and sounds like he's been the primary second baseman. I imagine he probably sits versus some lefties. But how do you feel about Marcelo Mayer? Obviously, he was a huge prospect coming up. It was him, it was Roman Anthony, it was Christian Campbell. Obviously, Campbell did not work out well last year. He's back in the minors. But Mayer, Roman Anthony's obviously, I think we're gonna think he's gonna be a stud, and you obviously love him. But how do you feel about Mayer? Kind of the third guy in this group who wasn't great last year when he came up, 228, only 4 homers. Hasn't been a huge power guy in the minors yet. He's still 23, but how do you feel about him, getting, I don't know, 75, 80% of the playing time?
I'm curious to see what advancements he can make. I worry that he's going to be still looking over his shoulder the whole time there, but his competition kind of melted away though, too. They had a key injury. They had Christian Crawford not hitting at all in spring training and now playing out in center field also. IKF is IKF. I mean, he's there, he exists, but whatever. He's never been able to hit all that much, but Mayer wasn't even that great this spring. That's the thing. It's like he won the job, but it was kind of like it wasn't like a decisive win either.
Uncle Ted in the chat was asking where does Chad Durbin play, or Caleb Durbin? Caleb Durbin's playing third base, and then Mayer's going to play second. Your crack staff was quick, Jeff. Sal Butera is Drew Butera's dad, but Blake is unrelated to both Buteras.
Okay, well there
we go.
Yes.
Yeah, I was. I'm definitely. Obviously, I mentioned before. I'm really interested in Crawford. Mayer, I'm kind of a wait and see. Maybe super late in a 15-teamer. Maybe we get some breakout, but I haven't seen quite enough to really feel like I need to grab him right away. I hope it works. He had a lot of strikeouts last year, and maybe it was a little bit less in the minors, but I'm kind of waiting on this. He did the ball hard in the majors, 51.7% hard hit rate. So that's a pretty good sign there. But it was a lot of swing and miss as well.
Yep, exactly.
A few other notes. We mentioned Nick Lodolo earlier, someone that's important to us in drafts. Left early Sunday. I kind of sent you a text freaking out, like I can't believe this is happening. Everybody's getting hurt again. But it was just a blister. But then you told me that he has some prior blister issues, correct?
Yeah, it's almost on the Rich Hill super blister level.
That is not something I want to get back into. I remember our podcasting days.
One of our greatest hits there. Yeah. But it tied in. It was tough because he struggled coming back from that blister in the minors, but then also had elbow issues too, and hard to separate the two a little. But yeah, I'm sufficiently concerned.
A quick note that a guy didn't have on our list because it happened a little late. What do you think about this Emmet Sheehan news? It says sounds like he might be able to begin the season in kind of a hybrid role, maybe pitching behind Ohtani. Emmet Sheehan was flying upwards. He was like in a 5th, 6th rounder. It sounds like one of Sheehan or Robleski is going to piggyback Ohtani. If Sheehan does it, that's not quite an opener. It's not Ohtani's going to pitch 1 inning. We like openers, but if Ohtani pitches, 4 to 5, then maybe Sheehan gets 2 to 3. That's not a great role for someone who's in a 6th round pick right now.
So I don't know if you saw the Nick Pollock tweets on Sheehan's velocity. Each of the last 2 outings, it's really dropped off in the middle of his outings. In Saturday, it was a severe drop off, and he's really concerned. So when Nick Pollock, pitcher list, go follow him if you don't already.
Yes,
absolutely need to be following Nick. If he's concerned, I'm concerned. This was a guy that I love. Emmet Sheehan's a guy I want to be on. But I shied away after Nick was tweeting last weekend showing his concerns about Sheehan. Now, keep in mind, Sheehan had a slow start to spring training because he had an illness that delayed his first spring training start. So that maybe tied into that a little bit. Maybe there's more there was more to him missing the start of spring training than the Dodgers were letting on as well. Might be tied into that as well, and why he hasn't been able to get stretched out successfully as much. These are the little things that's hard to parse in spring training.
Yeah.
Sheehan, Chase Burns, and they didn't like the way his arm was rotating, the little comments like that, ooh. And maybe it's a yellow flag, maybe it's a red flag, maybe it's orange. I don't know. Whatever the way it is there, it's enough that I have to want to dig into it a little bit more. And I wish I knew more about this sort of stuff because, yes, I am absolutely concerned. I shied away from him this weekend.
Spore in the chat mentioned, outside of some volume, is following Ohtani really that bad? 2 or 3 inning stints with big win potential. Obviously, if Ohtani pitches well, the Dodgers are going to score a bunch.
Sure.
I agree. It's really maybe not really that bad, but in the 6th round, that's not really what I want. I think that's a pretty big issue with the strikeouts, and Ohtani's never going to pitch twice in a week. So if you actually piggybacks him, that's 2 to 3 innings a week, and you have to hope they get to win that game. Otherwise, you get a couple innings of ratios, maybe a few strikeouts. I think that's a really tough model to follow unless they shy away from it. And either Robleski or Sheehan's it sounds like they're going to do it. I don't love it at the price, put it that way.
Yeah. Agreed. The only, I wanted more exposure to Sheehan than I got. I got him in Scarf. But I think I got him one other place, but nothing recently because his price kept on going up. And it isn't such a bad thing to have him go full Yarbrough if he's your SP5, SP6. You don't want him as your SP2. You need to get the innings. You need to get the impact of that great whip on, but multiplier effect with his innings. You need to get 5-6 innings to be able to really enjoy that.
And if it ends up being Robleski, that probably works a little bit better because he was a way later pick. People like him, but a way later pick.
Exactly.
If you do get some win potential and some innings from Robleski that way, I think that's more workable than it is from the 6th rounder. But
100%.
Another guy who was obviously very popular, had a really good playoffs is Trey Yesavage. Starting the season on the aisle with a shoulder impingement. He is starting a minor league game on Wednesday. This was kind of one of those ones. It was tough to tell whether they were maybe just kind of slow rolling him to keep his innings down, if there was literally something wrong. Were you even touching Yesavage in your draft this weekend?
It wasn't all draft season.
Okay.
So, and it's nothing.
Innings limit. Is that the worry? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, they did talk about that all along, that they wanted to limit his innings. Now, they weren't that specific about it. Were they limiting him to 150, to 120, to 90? What are they limiting him to? That's the tricky part there. I think you viewed that with the lens that you wanted to look at there. Like if you were already on Yesavage, you're like, oh, it's only going to be 150 innings. That's fine though.
Right.
But this is one form of how teams can limit a pitcher's innings. They're like, oh yeah, he's got a shoulder impingement. It's one of those terms of art, we hadn't heard a whole lot about it there. And then all of a sudden it's not a strain. It's not a tear. Strain is a tear, but that's all right. It's just an impingement. It can be a lot of different things.
And we're gonna get so many pitching injuries. Like I don't really want one with a kind of open timeline to start out with, unless it was really late, maybe on one stash. But I wasn't really doing it. He went really late in my draft, and I still really didn't consider it.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I considered it as a end game sort of guy in the auction. Yeah. I did the auction on Friday. I brought him up for $1. Almost got him. It was a late 2 that grabbed him from me there. I mean, that's fine. $2 is fine. As your SP 7, 8, 9, sure, why not?
Yeah.
As your SP 4 or 3 or 4, yeah, that's a whole different story. I'm trying to look where he went in my main real quick here because
he went really late into mine to the point I was about to take him. He went in the 27th round in mine.
Wow, really?
Yep.
18th round in mine.
Oh wow, that's a big difference. Interesting.
Massive difference there.
Yeah, that's like that's like 130 pick difference right there.
Yep.
A couple of guys who will not start the season on time. Seiya Suzuki won't be ready for opening day, but it doesn't sound like long after. They've not committed to putting him on the aisle, so it sounds like maybe a few days, maybe a week or so on Suzuki. So it should be pretty quick there. Not so quick for Kyle Stowers in Miami. We'll start the season on the aisle for his grade 1 hamstring strain. Sounds like 3 to 4 weeks there. So I imagine we're looking at kind of a May 1st ballpark deadline for Stowers, or a timeline for Stowers.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Stowers because he's had, he had it earlier in spring training, had come back, it's the classic come back too soon sort of type of setback. He also had the oblique injury at the end of the season early last year too. And then there's just, it was coming off of a breakout season. I'd like to see him build off of it again. You had to kind of pay a decent price for him. He went in the 15th round in my main still. That's a pretty significant price. I mean, you're looking for power bats. I mean, that was a range we were looking for someone there a little bit there and ended up pivoting to a different position. 3 picks before us. I wouldn't have taken him in the 15th, but maybe like the 17th I would have.
You won't be surprised. The team 1 snagged him in my draft in the 14th round.
Yes. That's what we like to call in the business as a tease.
Yeah, it is a tease.
Yes. It's a good tease.
Couple of really quick more notes. Grayson Rodriguez expected to begin the season on the IL due to dead arm, so one to monitor there. Jeremy Pena still in play for opening day, so we might get some good news there. And if not, it sounds like this is selling long after that. And one note, just because I love how it happened, Parker Messick in Cleveland wins a rotation spot. Did you see the Logan Allen spring training start?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit there. 12 runs in 2 1/3 innings there. How do you let the pitcher just wear it in spring training like that?
Not only that, though, he pitched the first, came out for the second, got pulled because spring training was you can bring him back in. Started the third, got pulled. Started the fourth, got pulled. He got pulled 3 times in the game. I've never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah, how do you pitch into the 4th inning and still get 2 1/3 innings there?
Amazing, right? Like,
God bless.
He got 14 hits and 12 runs in spring training. I've never seen a team let a guy give up that many runs in spring training. Truly amazing.
Yep.
Anthony Jolly asked in the chat about Francisco Lindor. I think he's. We talked about him last week. He was, in games. He's not yet committing to opening day. Was the last note, but if he's not, he's going to be really close. I think he's going to be out there opening day. That'd be my guess.
I was treating him as if he'll be there, but maybe be a little compromised early.
Yeah,
I haven't got him yet. I have not got him once. I'm not like, must stay away or anything like that. I don't feel strident about it, but it's like an early, where I've been drafting, whether it's the middle of the draft or at the end of the draft, like that's an early 2nd round pick, mid 2nd round pick. That's a great player you're passing up to take the guy with a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, if he had been there in the 3rd of my draft, I would have grabbed him for sure. He went in the late 2nd, so I was not around to grab him either. But let's get into our main event drafts. We're going to talk about yours first, but first a note from our sponsors at FANTRAX. FANTRAX is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, FANTRAX makes that easy as well. FANTRAX can import any of your current leagues and customize as you need. FANTRAX offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? FANTRAX offers more customization than any other platform. They can handle any kind of different waivers, categories, score systems, head-to-head, roto, schedule, whatever you need to do. FANTRAX offers custom solutions for all that and more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today. Simply go to fantrax.com/rotowire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/rotowire. FANTRAX, the home of fantasy sports. So, Jeff, let's jump into your main event. You were picking 13 or 14. I'm just trying to remember.
I was picking 13th.
13. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your plan going into it? Obviously there was the thought of probably all the top 3 pitchers will be gone. The hitters that'll be gone, but there's some outfielders there. There's a Gunnar Henderson there. There's a Christopher Sanchez kind of thing. What was your plan going in for those first 2 turn picks?
Chu and I, we powwowed a lot. We talked a lot for as soon as we found out our spot there. At first, I was thinking, do I take Christopher Sanchez at 13? Do I make sure I get my ace? Because we've been seeing him go as early as 12. And I didn't want to get locked out of aces on Friday. I didn't pay up for the high ace tier, the auction. The starting pitchers were going nuts there. And I thought it'd be more of the same in the main. It wasn't as tough as I thought it would be in terms of that. In fact, I had a choice. I could have taken Garrett Crochet at 13. My league might have been the max on Crochet. He went 14, so we didn't take him. We committed to our plan of taking one of those elite hitters and then kind of having the option of a second elite hitter or Sanchez, or just, pitcher. Turns out 2 closers went at the turn and the pick immediately before me. So I still had Sanchez sitting there available and the hitter I was considering. So it was interesting. I ended up going Fernando Tatis in part because Gunnar Henderson went 10. Kyle Tucker went 12 right before us. And J-Rod was gone as well. So kind of like, okay, some of the hitters I thought I'd have a Tucker versus Tatis and maybe J-Rod decision, maybe Gunnar decision. Instead, it was just Tatis.
You did have a Tatis versus Corbin Carroll decision. Was that a call for you or no?
Not really. Okay. I'm a little worried about Carroll to start the season. I love Carroll, and in a world where Carroll is not compromised at all, I take him over Tatis. But I know he's playing. I also know he's also was early on when he came back was favoring that hand a little bit there too. The history of players coming back from Hammet bones is sometimes they do come back a little too quickly.
Yeah,
it could be to my chagrin, but it's not like I'm passing on Carroll to take Yordan Alvarez. Oh wait, that was last year. Sorry. I'm not trying to right the wrongs of last year by taking Tatis, but I just thought he was the best hitter at the time, and it still gave us options to turn around on the way back.
I will be honest with you. I considered Tatis is one of the two or three guys I considered at 8. So I love it at 13. I'm very high on him this year. So you took Christopher Sanchez in the second round. You mentioned both closers went. Mason Miller and Edwin Diaz went 15 and 16. If they had taken Sanchez, were you considering a closer at 17, or was that that you were going offense or Sanchez?
I would have gone offense if Sanchez were gone at 18. And the thing is, I would have, but I would have gone a couple. One of the things I would have done is I was really thinking about Caminero. I think he's going to go nuts this year. And if Caminero were gone, and if it had gone like all hitters there, even or like Sanchez, but the rest hitters, I still probably wasn't going to take Mason Miller there. Nothing against that strategy. Might be the right one. We'll see. In our league, it was definitely that way. And very good player, Greg Martin. Excuse me. God, Greg Miller. I was looking at a player named Miller. I was looking at Mason Miller on Greg Martin's team. Greg Martin finished third overall in the main last year. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, won my league, so I saw it firsthand. Very good player.
I see the logic in going with it. I just didn't want to do it that way. But I would have considered Vladdy also at that spot. If his Caminero was gone, because Vladdy, you're locking up slugger with high average. But I also kind of wanted to wait a little bit on first base because I think there's pockets of value all over the place. We've talked about this. How there's many places there where you can find some value. But I ended up going Tatis and Sanchez there.
If I know you mentioned you were going offense and pitching, did you guys stop and have a conversation about Crochet because you didn't expect him to be there? So obviously you gotta kind of reformulate that. Did you consider it strongly, or were you pretty set on the offense?
We talked about it for 10 seconds or so.
Okay.
And just like decided to stick with it because you don't know what the two guys. I had a feeling Greg was going to take Corbin Carroll because I think I had heard before that he's a Corbin Carroll guy.
Okay.
I didn't know what Daniel Prepus, who was sitting at team 14, was next to me, what he was going to do, but I had a hunch that Sanchez might be available. I thought, and so it's like, what if all those hitters go and then I don't get one of those really good hitters? Because I think there's a drop off after Tatis, Carroll, Caminero, and Vlad. What if all 4 of them are gone? Then I'm like, I had already taken the pitcher. Do I do 2 pitchers? Do I settle for a bat, Churio or Schwarber there? And not even maybe, or Jazz Chisholm. I mean, these are options, but then you bring batting average risks into play with that high pick in the second round.
6 closers in your league in the second round, Jeff. Pretty wild. Miller, Diaz, Cade Smith, Yohan Duran, Andres Munoz, and Devin Williams taken by the Ohtani drafter in the one spot. Went Devin Williams and Brian Wu on the turn. I didn't see a lot. I saw a lot of closers go early. I did not see any leagues with 6 in the second round. You didn't see Devin Williams. Devin Williams was moving up, but not quite that far. So a lot of closers went. David Bednar went before your pick. So you came up to the third round here. You had some choices. Maybe a starting pitcher. Maybe a Aroldis Chapman. What were your thoughts with the turn here at 3-4?
A lot of thoughts. This was so I felt really good about the first, the first 2 picks. Felt fine about that.
Yep.
Felt very uncomfortable after that there. And I'm talking here for a second while I'm pulling up the board from that draft so people can check it out there. Just so people can see the tweet, but you guys can go ahead and check that out for yourself so you can see the full board. But basically, there you go. There's a link for the board in the chat. If you're live on YouTube there with us there, you can check it out. The closer slowed down a little bit there. After the 6 in the first round, the next one didn't go until immediately before me with David Bednar. Yeah. So I got what I wanted. I was like, we were talking all along. I don't know if I'm going to get Chapman at 43. I got what I wanted, but then I also don't know if I wanted that anymore. And I looked also that teams 14 and 15 already had a closer. Yep. So I wasn't going to take Chapman at 313. Although Greg tried to pump fake me a little bit and said, I'll take Chapman if you don't take him. But I took Manny Machado, I really like getting an early third baseman. It's no different in this league. I went Manny Machado here. The tough part was on the way back. I made audible there, went for the second ace and Freddie Peralta. I just decided starting pitching was going to really kind of dry up to a point. I didn't like the tier after Freddie Peralta that much. And I was kind of afraid of what I'd get at starting pitcher if I didn't get one then. So I had regrets immediately after, like, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing by skipping Aroldis Chapman there? Because there's such a big drop off at closer after that. Did I really do the right thing? I still don't know. That is going to be Anthony Giraldi was talking about pivotal plays. may not be the player you have the most of. It may be the player you passed up on and the consequences of that. Daniel Palencia went later in the 4th round. Fourth round for Daniel Palencia now. That's where we're at with him.
And that I saw that a bunch too. He went in the 4th round in my draft, the pick before me as well. So it was pretty consistent. I mean, Peralta was great last year. Peralta was 270, 108, 19% K minus walk. Swing strike rate was good, 13%. The BABIP helped a little bit. The left on base helped a little bit too. So a little bit of luck in there. I don't think you're expecting 2.7, but give you 3.3 with a 1-1 whip, and I think it probably works out pretty well on a team that the Mets that should score runs, should be a good team. So wins matter for pitchers, and that you got to think he's gonna be pretty good there too.
Yep, indeed you do. And I think that's definitely one of those where I'm getting the better ballpark. You're getting a contract here. There's lots of things that can kind of point in that direction.
165 plus innings the last 3 years too. So he's become, as maybe his electricity's gone down a little bit. He was a 30 plus strikeout guy in the past. I think you're getting more solid stuff. He's become more of a workhorse, but he's 29 years old still. I like that spot. Going him or closer is a tough call there. Him and George Kirby was probably a tough call for you. Do you consider Kirby there too?
Yeah, a little bit. He's in that range. And Yuri Perez, for that matter, I kind of considered too, as another possibility. I kind of thought that I'd take 2 closers in 5-6. And then I didn't. I took 1. I took Raisel Iglesias. And again, it was like, I just had a hard time committing, like going 4 pitchers, two hitters to start. And I also had a problem with just like the closers that were available. Hoffman went before me in the 5th. So did Ryan Helsley. We ended up getting Iglesias, which, I haven't really been on him this year.
Funny, because I actually like him more than you do, and you ended up with him. It's funny how that works.
Yep, but I could have gone like Iglesias and Fairbanks. I could have gone Iglesias and Pagan. Pagan went 1 pick before us in the 7th, and I think we would have gone Pagan in the 7th. But I ended up only 1 closer all draft, and that was and hey, if there's 22 reliable closers in a 15-team draft, you can do the math. It's not even 22 reliable ones. It's more like 17 reliable ones. Yeah. It's hard to get 2 closers in a draft.
I'm pretty good once you get a top 10 guy, probably not committing the single digit pick to that. I know there's some teams that do, but you went 6th round. You went Freddie Freeman around the turn. Obviously really solid there. It looks like Olsen, Devers, and Freeman kind of were in the same range. Jared Duran with the pick before Freeman. Were you taking Duran, or were you with Freeman for sure?
I probably would have gone Freeman. It's just, the thing is, I wasn't for sure on anything there, but it was interesting. There were, in that span, there was like, I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first basemen in the span of like 12 picks.
Yeah.
Harper, Olsen, Freeman, Devers, Naylor, Pasquantino. Pasquantino got pushed up a little bit there. I would have taken Drake Baldwin, your guy, instead of Freeman had he made it, but he did not make it. So that was tough.
So you have 3 hitters and 3 pitchers, 2 stars and a closer. You got an outfield, a third baseman, and a first baseman. Come back around. You got a turn. You went hitter pitcher, kind of what you've been doing so far, keeping it even. You went Corey Seager in the 7th. I love that pick. I think he is actually a little bit mispriced. I think Seager in the end of the 7th is one of my favorite picks. And then you took our friend Nick Lodolo in the front of the 8th. I like that one. So I'm a big fan of that turn right there.
Yeah, I like that turn. I was happy with it. Although I'll tell you what. The thing about the consequence of taking the mispriced hitters, Freeman, Corey Seager, even Machado a little bit, I think is a little mispriced. I saw him go a lot earlier in some other drafts, at least earlier in draft season. None of those guys run a whole lot. So
I was about to say, and I think we talked about it in the car, through 8 rounds, you got 4 really good hitters, solid average, power, but the stolen bases are definitely lacking.
Yeah. And that's the problem. I mean, anytime you take Seager, especially because it's a shortstop position there, you're worried about that. Dave Weekly chimes in. Dave is my host, hosts a radio show out of West Virginia. I've been on his show for years. He's asking about Nick Lodolo and the blister. Yes, you should be worried about Nick Lodolo's blister injury because of the past with him.
That's not the answer I want, Jeff.
Yeah, I know.
Can you change that answer for me and make it better?
Yeah. I cannot.
You know what? It came out of the game. I'm happy as a blister rather than some kind of serious arm injury. So I'm not happy about it. But when he first came out, the tweet was just leaves early with injury. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, I'd like to see it go away pretty quick too.
So here's the thing. One thing I will say is I want them to take their time right now.
Yes.
Take your time. If he misses a start the first week of the season, so be it.
Yeah, agreed.
What you absolutely don't want is them to continue to they continue having these issues. I know they're down Hunter Green right now. They're not sure if they can get Chase Burns stretched out, but and the same thing though is like, take your time, deal with it there. You have this depth. You have 6 starters for a reason. Use them that way. Do you want me
to call Lodolo and tell him when I was 11, I had a blister during a tennis tournament and all I did was put some new skin on, then I went and played a baseball game after that? Do you think they'd be happy to know that?
Rub some dirt on it, of course.
I wasn't throwing 92-mile-an-hour sliders, but it was probably pretty similar.
Yep.
Moving along here, we talked about Christian Yelich, one of your key guys. You took him in the 9th round. You took Luke Keyshaw in the 10th. Obviously, addressing some stolen base there. Talk to me about Keyshaw. I think we've talked a lot about Yelich, but talk to me about Keyshaw. This is someone that's been moving up, hitting high up in the Twins order. I think you're looking for batting average, runs, and stolen bases or something like that. Talk to me about your interest in Keyshaw.
Yeah, it's definitely addressing stolen bases. And without totally abandoning other hitting skills. Yeah. I like what I saw out of him when he got the call last year. Staying healthy is something I got to watch for a little bit there because, he played some outfield in the spring a little bit there. He was a DH for a while, but they really want him to be able to make it through the season healthy. But he ran last year, 14 bags in 49 games. At AAA, it was 11 bags in 28 games. So he's got a big green light. I like that quite a bit. I like the batting eye. 19 walks against 29 strikeouts last year and 207 plate appearances there. I like that. I like a guy that can control the strike zone. That means he's going to get on base a lot, which gives him those stolen base opportunities. I think the Twins have shown they'll let their players run. Keyshaw's already had it. Buxton's already had it before.
Yep.
So that's one of the things. And it's not like the Twins have so much at stake that they're like, no. You got to have you stop running. No, this is a bad team. I like fast players on bad teams.
For sure. And he legit faced 85th percentile sprint speed. So that lines up as well there. I'm intrigued here. He's 23 out of Arizona State. He was a 2nd round pick by the Twins. I like it too. I think that he moved up to the point where I thought he was fully priced, but fairly priced. I didn't think he was overpriced by any means. But you needed the steals. You get him in a second baseman, which is nice too. You fill that spot. Second base is really weak this year. So I like how you filled that. Then you come back around. You needed some pitching again. Now that you kind of addressed a couple hitters back to back in 9 and 10, Shane Baz, the end of the 11th. I wanted him in the 10th in my league. He went the pick before me to Hall of Famer Steve Jupinka and his 9 main event titles. So I was not pleased about that. But a lot of times where like the team's coming back around and took I had like 4 guys in my queue and they took 3 of them in a row, 4 or 5 of them in a row. It was some brutal ones, but you got Shane Baz in the 11th. Love that pick. And then Tanner Bybee in the 12th. Talk to me about Bybee. I think we've talked about Baz a bunch. We haven't talked a lot about Bybee. What do you like there?
I liked a couple things here. So the Baz Bybee turn was, came out of the break and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with pitching 6 and 4, but I also know that they're starting to dry up. You read what's going on in the room and and obviously your league was even more, even tougher in pushing those guys up. Yep. But I'm not a Tanner Bybee huge guy, but he does give you strikeouts. I like how he finished the season at least. And if pulling up the grid, I can just tell you, like I spec'd out, like I had a spreadsheet going where at each pair of picks, I kind of like mapped out pairs of picks and which pitchers should theoretically be available for that range. And they were drying up quicker. If you look like, and I tweeted out our draft, I put the link to my tweet of the draft grid there. Look at like the 9th round, for instance, there. I think there were 11 yellow stickers in that.
Yep. Looks like it. Yep.
10th round was almost as bad. The 11th round, we saw, Ranger Suarez go. We saw Luis Castillo go. Cade Horton, one of my guys. I was bummed out about that one there, actually.
Yep.
Rob Geis got that one there. I always butcher his name, but it was a great guy, friend of ours. Saw him there. Robbie Ray went a couple
human.
For me. Very good human. So point is, like, I had a couple guys left, and that was it in that tier, pretty much. I'm like, okay, it's now or never. And because I guarantee you, Bybee doesn't make it back. Whereas I think a bunch of outfielders do. Not all of the outfielders I like did. It was tough seeing like Wilyer Abreu and Dalton Varsho go. That taking Bybee cost me those guys. Yeah. Taylor Ward would have been a good fit on my team. Ian Happ would have been a good fit on my team. I have so much exposure to Ian Happ, though. It's okay. I have a lot of Ian Happ this year. So it was okay that I didn't get him. But Varsho would have been nice. Abreu, I think, was the best of all of those. I know you approve of that message.
Much.
But yeah, point is, though, like, yeah, I there's more supply of outfielders left than there is of starting pitchers that I like. That's why I went 2 pitchers there.
I like that thinking. And then you came your next turn. You took like the most boring guy on the board and the least boring guy on the board. So it was a good combo. Very very yin and yang here. Brian Reynolds, like the most boring outfielder, solid, but
I introduced him with my pick. I said, boring ass Brian Reynolds. Tom Kastanek, who's coordinating our draft, got a kick out of that.
So you took Brian Reynolds. We don't need to talk about him. We know what you got there. Solid but boring. But then you come back around. Super stud rookie Kevin McGonigal. I knew you were drafting the professor, but didn't know when you were going to get him. I'm really happy that you got him because I knew he was a big target for you.
I specifically wrote down 193, 198, and I made team 15 had Mookie Betts, Dansby Swanson, and a second baseman. I think at that point in time, had 2 shortstops at least, so I wasn't worried about him. Taking him, team 14 had Neto and Albies, so he could have taken his middle there. Fortunately, he didn't but also Weatherholt was still available, and I would have pivoted to Weatherholt if McGonigal weren't available at that spot. Ironically, I kind of had a similar thing going in the auction league, and Weatherholt was the first nomination and was brought up for 5. I went 6 and it stopped. So I didn't get McGonigal in that league, but that's okay.
I love the Weatherholt buy at 6 though.
Yeah. Either, I like them both, and I was going to get the first one at a reasonable price. And they turned out they're both reasonable.
It's nice when you have a fun guy you're targeting that you end up getting. I know you did not get Roman Anthony, who you love and really wanted, but he went in the middle of the 5th. You're probably counting the picks, hoping he's going to get back to you on that one. But to get McGonigal is really good.
In fact, I was like, I'm not going to allow myself to think about Roman Anthony.
But then it gets within like 6 picks. You're like, oh, maybe everybody's not going to do it. Maybe everyone's going to take a picture, but didn't quite get there. Moving along quickly as we get to the back half of your draft. Dylan Dingler, your first catcher. I know you like him. Alec Boehm, love that pick. I just think it's solid. I know it's kind of a boring guy too, but boring wins a lot. But then talk to me about that as we move along here. I mentioned your next pick, Jack Leiter at the round 17. Really came on in kind of the second half of the year last year. I like that pick. It's someone that's obviously he was obviously huge pedigree guy coming out of college. I like that one. I think that's a fun pick. That he's got a really good argument why maybe that second half was kind of turned the corner for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was this instance here was a case there where I was looking at just strikeouts that were possibly available. Looking at Texas, and again for whatever reason, starting pitchers dried up for a while there in terms of people taking them. Leiter hung around a little longer than he probably should have. And, compared to other main event leagues, I know he definitely hung around longer than that, longer than most of the other main event leagues. So why not take it there? I know it costs you a hitter, but there are other pitchers after me. And I know Daniel Prepus was all set to take Leiter. He's ticked at us. I think the curse word. I think that was the only time Dan cursed the entire draft. Dan was
I had the over under way higher than 1 in Prepus curses.
Maybe he liked his draft a lot because he wasn't F-bombing it too much.
It's too bad. I like when Prepus is dropping some F-bombs. So Dan's always fun to sit next to in the draft. At this point, you have 2 outfielders. So it's time to address outfield. You did that in rounds. I'm looking at 18, 19, 20. Kerry Carpenter, Josh Lowe. You must have muted me when I talked about Josh Lowe. So those didn't picked him there. And then Matt Wallner in Minnesota. Power, speed, power kind of looks like what the combo was there.
Yeah, and I could have taken Chandler Simpson, but then that would have meant muting myself. So I didn't do that. But
love it.
Carson Bench went 2 picks before me in the 19th, and I would have absolutely taken him over Lowe. That was a snipe. Yeah. Team Hughes got me on that one there. That was tough. I even told those guys after, hey, that they had a number of good picks, but that one in particular got me. That one hurt a little bit there. But Josh Lowe, I'm not on him. This was just I need someone with the possible power speed combo. Josh Lowe's there. He's healthy now-ish, adjacent. So, yeah, why not?
He went 2032 in 2023.
Yeah.
He's done it. I don't think he's a very good hitter, but he has done it. So I do get that. You need some speed. Then talk about the last 10 rounds. Anybody else you particularly want to talk about? You had a bunch of pitchers. I think you went like 6 pitchers to end. You added your second catcher in Bo Naylor, your old friend from the Reds, Jonathan India. Who you want to talk about in the back end of your draft?
Okay, so you notice I only have 1 closer. So I took 4 stabs at possible guys. And, these are going to be guys that are pretty fungible anyhow. Your last 10 picks you're supposed to cycle through. That's really how you're supposed to do it. But I'm just hoping like Garrett Clevenger, even if he doesn't close, I can get him. I can use him that first half week. I don't really have to worry about having a starting pitcher there or not. Chris Martin's a 50-50 shot at getting saves for Texas, maybe 40-60, maybe 35-65. But the point is he's a good pitcher. And I think
also approved by Phil Dussault. That's never a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing for sure.
Yeah.
Jojo Romero, again, the Cardinals have made a point of not telling us who their closer is.
Yep.
I think it's probably Swanson or O'Brien. Those are the guys I'd really rather, but they were gone. So I went Romero here. And then Justin Sterner. That I like his stuff better than the other guys that are being considered for the A's job. And that might not mean anything. So he could be an easy cut. I could see that happening. Almost did cut it today, but I decided to just let that one play out because I know I'll need the saves. That's the one thing is I know I'm going to need to FAAB saves and stolen bases. Those are the two things. Yeah, because nothing else is possibly going to go wrong all season. So I should be fine on the other spots, right? Nothing ever does bad goes happens there.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, feel pretty good about it. Seems like you have a pretty good vibe on it.
I have a better vibe now than I did after like 10 picks. I was very unhappy at the first break. And then it kind of came together in the next 10. So it was okay.
So we'll switch over to my draft. I was picking 8th. Not a spot I love.
Let's flip this here. Let me quiz
Please
you.
do. Beautiful. Do it.
Let's do this here. So you're picking 8th.
Yep.
Coming into this draft, you told me you're thinking about passing on J-Ram. Because he's been sliding this over the weekend. Used to be top 5, top 6. Acuna jumped him. The pitchers have jumped him. Now Elly De La Cruz is starting to jump him. And you jumped him with Elly De La Cruz.
So I did a Thursday night main event shared with Jason Anthony, our friend, another good human. It was fun to see him in Vegas. Yeah. But I don't really care about taking the same guys later in the draft. But the first 3 or 4 rounds, I really don't want to double up if I don't have to. I play so few teams. I don't want 3 Jose Ramirez. So Jose Ramirez is probably the smart, safest pick there. But I wanted to go a little different. I went with Elly De La Cruz. I always struggle with stolen bases. Could get some big stolen bases there. Obviously, the speed power combo. Know there's a little batting average too. Great park. Just really fun too. I have the shirt, so might as well grab them. But
I like how you your draft based on your wardrobe. That's well done.
Yeah, I mean you can't get research better than that, right?
No, that's
Soto went 7th. That was when he got to 6. The guy at 6 took Skeens. There's a chance at 7 someone could go Crochet too. So I would have taken Soto and obviously 0.2 seconds. Wouldn't let the moderator get the name of the other person out before I said it. But so there was one draft. I think Soto went 8. I saw in the main event, but I would have taken that in a second. But pretty happy with Elly. Obviously, you take a first round pick. You're hoping you get some batting average in the second round. Spoiler alert, I did, so that worked out well. But mostly, so a little bit of diversifying, but a little bit of love the player. There's going to be some monsters at some point. I always struggle with stolen bases, so getting a stolen base and a shortstop out the gate just made a lot of sense for a player like me.
Yeah, I think that worked out great. And then you didn't get the max pick on your second round pick, but you got a very late Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at pick 23.
Yeah, as it was coming around, I was kind of thinking maybe Kurtz because he was slipping a little bit, maybe Jazz, but I was a little worried about batting average there. I was thinking about maybe Lindor if I could get there, but maybe a closer. The closers went, Mason Miller went 15, Diaz went 7, what is that is 17, 18. Kate Smith went really early too. And then Churio went and Cal Raleigh went to pick for me. So I ended up with Vlad Guerrero. Could have been happier there because I just think he pieces together perfectly with Elly. You suddenly you saw obviously you already have the steals. Now you get power, you get really good batting average. I thought that was just a perfect compliment for Elly, and helped me kind of ease those batting average concerns that I would have had if I had taken someone. If I had taken Kurtz, suddenly I'm kind of chasing batting average the whole draft.
And that's the thing is when you're drafting, and it takes a while to notice this. And even in a snake draft, you have to think about how the pieces fit.
Yeah,
you really do. And we talked earlier. My scarf draft, I got the combo of Elly and Cal Raleigh, and they don't pair super well together. But they also, the other hitters in that second round also don't pair super well with them, except for in your case where you got the windfall of Vladdy coming to you there. Looking at the hitters that went after you in that, there's Nick Kurtz, there was Jazz Chisholm, Francisco Lindor, another shortstop. That's the problem with that.
Yep.
Pete Alonso, and then Trey Turner to finish out the first round. Another shortstop. Now, it's not a mortal sin to go shortstop, but it makes it kind of tough.
It does.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, I could have done it, and we yet to kind of figure it out. But getting Vladdy there was just really nice.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It is. Let's talk about one thing that happened in your draft here before we move on to your next picks.
Yeah.
Team 1. We got to talk about this.
Let's do it.
His initial picks are fine, but when you get a team that goes off the reservation, and he went off the reservation, we'll talk about this a little bit more. how does that affect your draft? I'll tell everybody what he did. Early on was fine. I'm assuming it's he. We'll see. Ohtani, Trey Turner, Yamamoto, Manny Machado, James Wood. Is that
Agustin Ramirez?
Agustin Ramirez.
Yeah.
Injured Josh Hader in the 7th. Sonny Gray, Michael King, Seiya Suzuki also hurt right now.
Yep.
Abner Uribe, still fine. That's a fine price. Nimmo, Aranda. It's the early part was fine.
Yep.
It's in the middle and late where he kind of goes crazy.
But I already had 2 injured guys, so you figure back half, like, just don't get injured guys. Like, you're fine if you could take those 2 stashes, and Seiya Suzuki's a quick stash, but nobody else injured in the minors, right?
Right, exactly. That's not what happened. Kyle Stowers goes. He takes Logan Henderson, hurt and sent down. Dylan Cruz sent down. Jasson Dominguez sent down. Sean Manaea to the bullpen. Every time I saw Sean Manaea getting picked, I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Robbie Snelling sent down. It's just a collection of guys. Jonah Tong sent down. Trey Yesavage on the IL. Peyton Tolley probably sent down. I took Peyton Tolley too, but that's my one stash. That's the difference there. You're not getting those windfalls necessarily, but then you're getting the guy that someone else might have taken instead a little bit there. So you're getting like a small residual benefit. You're playing in probably a 14-team league.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, you realize how quick people notice that when really good drafters. Like, I think you noticed a couple stashes. You're like, oh, there's the Hader team. Can't take it anymore. And then it just kind of kept happening. And then when he went Cruz, we're all like, oh my God. And then he went did Dominguez. It was funny because he was the one guy that wasn't there. I mentioned that earlier, but it was very strange. And I don't think he added anybody today either. I'm looking at who the drops were. None of those guys that we mentioned. So I think he's just kind of taking some zeros to start the season, which we're going to always have weeks where you can maybe take some zeros, have some struggles, but man, taking him off the bat in week 1, like that's brutal.
Yeah. And here's the thing. That guy probably spent the day today looking for the IL button. And it just
could be.
Yeah. It's not there. It's just, you have to know your league rules. You have to know what this is all about. And knowing that there's no IL, there's no minor league spot. You don't get the there's no stash spots there. You may have this collection of amazing talent. You may have gotten, you're betting on talent for the second half, but our experience in the NFBC suggests that just doesn't work. You're losing too much ground. Keeping in mind there's an overall, and you're paying money for the overall. A portion of your buy-in goes to the overall, whether you want to choose to play for your league or not. It just doesn't work to have more than a stash or 2 at most.
Yeah, not 11.
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of weird. It's the Ohtani team too. So you just think the Ohtani his team's gonna have a tough time winning unless he really figures something out or has some really good pickups. But it's hard to see that team making a run.
Yeah, and the thing is, like that first half of the draft, it's pretty studly. I mean, he's got some. I mean, I like Sonny Gray and Michael King as his 2-3 starters. And Uribe, if he gets the job as a stud closer, there's definitely a path to upside there. It's just every spot counts.
Yes, it does.
This is not like, well, you can't put him on IL and put somebody else as a replacement in. The thing is, you're having to use up your and this guy doesn't even have enough for a full active roster. That's the other difference there. He's got maybe 7 pitchers that are not dead right now.
Yeah, I think he's got like 9 guys that either are in the minors or injured, which means, you have a 7-man bench. You got 2 zeros at least week 1.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can. It's great to take a shot on like Robbie Snelling if you don't have 2 other pitchers hurt. That's the point here. All right, back to your team.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. So you started off with 2 hitters, De La Cruz and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Your league was pretty calm on the early pitching. It looked like, to the point where you got Logan Gilbert in the middle of the 3rd. I've seen him go much earlier in other leagues. You were able to get the Aroldis Chapman. He slipped in your league too. Other people made the tough decision to pass on him in the 4th.
It was a really tough call for me, actually, him in the 4th, because Pico Armstrong got all the way to pick 59 in that league. So I really considered it for a while. Chapman Palencia went the pick before me. And I was pretty sure I was going to take Chapman. I realized that PCA was still there. Obviously the tough second half, but man, that is, he was someone that was going, maybe in the early 30s early on. That's my pick was 53.
Yep.
I took a long time on that one. Probably one of my longer times where I actually used the whole clock. I thought about Langoliers. I thought about Pico Armstrong. I just kind of figured I was worried about a closer run happening at some point. It didn't really happen. I could have taken Hoffman or Fairbanks in the next round or Iglesias. I guess Iglesias a couple rounds later. But I just went with Chapman. I know he's up there in age, but man, so good last year on a good team. I just wanted to lock in one of the top 6 or 8 closers.
Yeah, Palencia at 4.7. Wow,
yeah.
That's even 4.9 in mine.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of breathtaking. But yeah, that's the thing. Palencia's graduated to that tier, and the fact that he went above Chapman just shows. And that was a really great player sitting next to you, Steve Japinka too. So
yes, everything Steve does, I figure he does for a reason. He was, obviously really knows what he's doing. That WBC moved up Palencia like 2 rounds. It's just there's no way around that.
Yep. Austin Riley in the 5th round there. You also got an elite third baseman.
Yep, that was a big target. I wanted to get a big bat in that range. It was either Olsen, Harper, or Austin Riley. I like the third baseman with Riley. I was close on Olsen and Riley. They're both there. Matt Olsen went the next pick to the guy who next to me said I was going to take one of them as well. So I love Riley. There's a little talk and maybe him stealing a few bags. I'm not really counting on that, but the guy has been a 2nd and 3rd round pick the last couple of years. I think we're going to, a bit of a bounce up in the power. I think last year was a little fluky in the low power. I think he's going to be really solid. Love getting a third baseman too, because they fall off after that.
They sure do. Sure do. All right. So following Riley there, you went and got Jarren Duran. Little slippage there. You got some speed needed to get that after, getting Vladdy and Riley. Although Riley's going to steal 20 because they have Antoine Richards as their baseball coach now. He's not going to steal 20. He's going to steal like 5 instead of 1. But you get Duran, you get Will Smith. That's a Jeff approved target. There you've got 5 hitters in your first 7 picks.
Yep. Time to go pitching, right?
Yeah. Exactly there. I really love that start though.
Duran was kind of an ADP slip pick, someone I like, but I think he was near. I know he was the latest he went in the 12 main events on in Vegas, but I think he was pretty close to the max. I needed I got Elly, but I'd like to get some bags as well because Vlad. I'm not counting on Riley. We were joking about that, but Vlad and Riley aren't going to. Maybe they steal 7 or 8 together. But wanted to get another guy with stolen base. I mean, Duran was a guy that was a 2nd round pick last year. It was 16-24 last year. I know he was down from the year before, but got more hard contact than the year before. I know he struck out a little bit more, but just a ton of runs in Boston. I just think I think he's just a fancy stat wise guy, and batting average might be a little bit low, but I think he'll be really solid.
Yeah. You got 3 pitchers in the next 5 rounds. Lodolo, you got Edward Cabrera, and you got Luis Castillo. Yeah, when you have to catch up in pitching, you dedicate those mid-round territory purchases there. You have to pass up on some hitters you might like because you got so many good early hitters as building blocks.
Yeah, toughest pick for me was the 9th round. I knew I needed to go pitching, but Trevor Story slipped a long ways down there. So I took the ADP slip, a player that I liked that he was obviously really good last year. If I get 75% of what last year was at that price, it's really, really good. I think it was like a full round and a half past ADP, but he was 25-31 last year. A lot of hard contact, dropped the strikeouts from the year before. So that's one that I knew when I did it was going to cost me. There were 3 pitchers I wanted that I thought would get back. Shane McClanahan, Mackenzie Gore, or Shane Boz. They all got back to within 4 picks of me, and then they went boom, 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 3 out of 4 picks. The Cabrera one was a reach. I really like him, but it's 670 before ADP. But at that point, there were a couple hitters I really liked there, but I knew I had to take a pitcher. That's the one, Cabrera, the Story Cabrera turn, I guess not turn in the middle, but the 9-10 swing there probably could be what determines if this team is really good or not. That if Cabrera works out and Story is kind of close to his last year, those will really work out. But those are the ones that is a little not so sure on as I was making the picks.
Yep. I'm a little worried about Castillo just because of the trends and strikeouts and velocity, things of that nature. Like every Seattle pitcher, he's got a significant home road split.
Yeah. At that point with Cabrera and Lodolo, that felt like get me a guy who throws a lot of innings. He might not be as good as he used to be, but will be solid and not suck. Pitching in a great park on a good team. That was a very give me a safe workhorse kind of guy. And I know there's no safe workhorse pitchers, but I felt like of the guys in that range, he was the one. I actually held my breath a little bit. I really wanted him. Woodruff, Nola, and Bybee went right before him. I really wanted Castillo there because I felt like his profile just kind of fit what I had in pitching.
Fair enough there. So I like that. I like your build there. Later on, well, first of all, you got your precious Wilyer Abreu. I think.
Just pencil in the 13th round. If someone else takes him, I throw something at him. It's kind of how it works.
Yep. You got Jack Caglione. You got Mike Trout. You got Justin Crawford. 4 outfielders in the after the first break.
Yeah, I only had 1 through 10 rounds, so it was time to grab some. Caglione was kind of right about ADP, but that was one. It was just a spot I didn't really love a lot of hitters in there. I didn't love the pitchers after I forget who it was. So another pitcher went that I want to take. I think it was probably Serenity Dominguez. I think I wanted to get a second closer there. He went pretty early right after the break. Teams that are thinking about their close situation, usually after the break, those guys kind of go. But yeah, I love Abreu. I actually think Trout in the 14th round, give me 100 games. I think that'll work. I know the strikeouts are huge, but still a lot of pop. Sounds like he's in really good shape moving towards center field. I like that. And then I love Justin Crawford. We talked about him earlier. I think the batting average is going to be good. I think the runs are going to be good. I think he'll move to the top of the lineup at some point. It's tough in that lineup because they're so good. But I think he'll move up a little bit. I just think the steals are there. A ton of steals in the minors. Good profile. Doesn't strike out a lot. I really like the player there. I feel old that I drafted Carl Crawford's son, though.
I know, right? That I remember drafting Carl Crawford as a rookie. That's amazing. Absolutely, feel older sort of moment there. Let's take a look at a couple other guys here. Some more pitchers here because you're filling out your staff. Man, I love some of your mid-round pitchers here. Ryan Weathers, you got Chad Michael Patrick, 90s heartthrob. You've got Parker Messick. You've got Clayton Beeter as a second closer and a closer adjacent. We'll see about that. Also threw in a Lucas Urseg there with instead of jumping on the hand grenade. I think that's what Todd Hoppe referred to it as when drafting Carlos Estevez. Simeon Woods Richardson. You got Woods Richardson. He's had a good spring. He's earned a starting pitching spot in that Twins rotation there. I'm always wary of him in the past, but he's gotten a little bit better too. But Messick in particular, I think that's one I missed on him in the main. I got him in a lot of other places. He's one of my favorite targets.
Yeah, and I knew I had to do it because our friend Dr. Dave is the third pick going that direction. They're big Guardians fans, so I knew I had to do it. I actually got a thumbs up and a kind of mad at me for that pick too. So I like that as well. And we knew he was going to win the job after the Logan Allen thing. I think Messick will be solid. He was really good walk rate in his quick time in the minors last year. I know he had some walk issues in the minors, but good in the majors. I just think solid. I like Cleveland pitchers. I like what they do with pitchers. I just think it's a solid thing. And after I took Ryan Weathers, who's not solid, but throws hard and could be really high upside, but probably will get hurt. Messick and Patrick kind of like guys are just going to fill some innings, be in the rotation, be solid, not spectacular. I just felt like I needed that after Ryan Weathers.
Absolutely.
And I have no idea what Clayton Beeter is going to be. I just had one closer at that point. Like you said, the math works out. Not that many teams get two closers. There's not that many guys locked in. I did that, and then Urseg in the 22nd round. I was just going to do it. I'm betting against Carlos Estevez. It might not be Urseg. It could be Matt Strahm. But I wanted to make sure that if Estevez loses it or goes on the IL early, I had the potential guy in the back end. So I'll hold it for 2 or 3 weeks and kind of see what the situation with Estevez looks like.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah.
Filling out your roster, anything else you want to highlight?
Yeah, I went with Josh Bell. Love Josh Bell. We've talked about him. That I was surprised when I looked last year at the hard hit rate, just how good it was. So I think there's a backup corner. He fits that really well. And the guy I'm interested in, I took Foster Griffin. Again, James Anderson was talking about him. 30 years old, pitched in the Japanese league the last 3 years. It was nasty there. Like, we never know with guys coming over. We talked about Cody Ponce coming back over, but 275, 107, 301, 105, and 162, 095 the last 3 years in Japan. So massive K- walks. His walks were under 6% all those years. Again, he's on the Nationals. You're not getting any wins. Who knows what really happens here, but I kind of like some of these guys coming over. He's 30. Maybe he figured something out. I thought in the 26th round, that was worth a shot to see maybe his first 2 or 3 or 4 starts and see what we got here.
Absolutely. And he's had the Ks this spring. I like seeing that. Built up to 78 pitches in his last outing. The only problem with him is wins. That's not going to get any. Yeah. Really bad team. Not much relief help, even though, hey, but you can pair him with your closer there in Clayton Beeter.
Oh, God. Can you imagine how many Beeter starts saves him watch where he blows Foster Griffin wins? It's going to be painful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The double whammies are all when your starter has the win and the closer comes in and blows it. That is just a brutal double whammy. I hate those.
Yep. Paul Sporer chiming in here too. I like this comment here. The whole quartet of guys coming back from the NPB and KBO were pretty intriguing. Griffin, Ponce, Cave, Weiss, even Drew Anderson there. And the thing is, there was only one non-returnee from that came over from Japan and Tatsuya Imai, and he's looking great too right now. He's 99. So it's kind of interesting seeing all those guys coming back there. I wanted to have more of them. We just didn't get quite as many of them this year, but still, definitely one of those things worth watching there. If you have a weakness, what is it?
It's going to be starting pitching. I'm going to need that Lodolo, Cabrera, Castillo, Weathers, Patrick Messick. I'm going to need like two of those guys to really step up because I've, obviously love Gilbert, but my 2 is, 8th round is a little weaker than some. My 3 in the 10th. I really love my offense. There's a lot of people walking by me like, oh, your offense looks great. I'm like, yeah, but the pitching doesn't. So those middle grinds, SP2 to SP7. Those guys are going to have to work out for this team to be really good. But I do like the guys, but those are going to have to work out. I'm probably going to need a couple FAAB ads to make this team win the league. It's going to need a little bit of pitching help.
Yeah, I have a similar thing going for me in the auction where my highest paid player was Andres Munoz. I paid 25 for Munoz in the auction. I got Webb, I've got Gossman, and I've got Pepio, but then I have a lot of cheap starters there. It's not totally like your build. It's a lot cheaper, in fact, with the remaining starting pitchers. I have volume there. I've got Parker Messick in that group.
You got Messick for $1 the day before. He would not have been $2 after he got named to the rotation.
I agree.
Or he'd not have been $1. He would have been $200, like probably $2 or $3, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would think so. I feel like I got a couple players that were more expensive the next day, and that's always a good sign. Doesn't mean I've won, but it feels good.
Yeah. Quick, in your auction, I kind of came down and watched like the first, 45 minutes to see the first pick. It was interesting. You got Nick Kurtz for $22, and then like the next player was Vlad. He went for 30. Nolan McLean, you mentioned for 23. I couldn't believe Nick Kurtz was like the cheapest I've seen in any auction all year. $22. I know he wasn't really the biggest target, but like he just slipped. I don't know if it's Mark Cerebro talking him down on podcasts all spring, but $22 is wild. He slipped in drafts, but like in the middle of the second, $22 was crazy cheap for him.
He's not having a good spring either. I think that had something to do with it too. I'll be honest,
man, in that park, like I think it's, he's going to have power. The batting average, I get it. He strikes out a ton. I didn't want to take him when he was the 1-2 turn, but $22 seems really cheap.
Yeah, it was cheap. It was not part of the plan. I'll be honest. It was not someone who I went in saying, oh yeah, I'm going to definitely go out and get him. But it was stalling at 20. I'm like, okay, I'll take, I took a quick look, like, all right, I can work with this. I'll move some things around. I don't know if I moved enough around. In fact, I probably didn't. And that's the risk here is I'm going to play with a lot of pros here. So, but if I try to do the same thing they're doing and starting pitching was getting priced up every single way, they're probably going to do it better than me. So why not do something a little different? And I kind of went there. I like my offense in that league. I'll do a little screenshot of my roster. I can't, because once you switch to the reserve rounds, those prices go away on the board. That's one of the negative things, but
yeah, that's true.
I can at least do this where I kind of click. I don't know if I can't share a screenshot actually in StreamYard. Oh, well, nice try.
Uncle Ted says Kurtz can't pull a baseball. If he hits 460 to center field, I'm cool with that too.
Can't pull a baseball.
By the way, he was league average in pull rate. So that's he was 36.8%. That's league average. So I think he's okay there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit lower, but yeah, he's right around. He's 37% pull rate. But so much power to all fields. Like I don't think. And in Sacramento, I don't think that I'm going to worry about that one. I think the power is real.
I would not use the word can't. I would say didn't pull the baseball. It pulled it less than average last year, but players develop too. It might go back. It's not like he's going to be this constant point. He could change a little bit there too. Now, maybe for better, maybe for worse. Maybe pitchers figure him out more. And I'm donning the jester's motley, but I didn't pay full price for him. I paid definitely like that would be the equivalent. What's 22 equivalent of like a late third?
Yeah. When they talk light tower power, that's him. He actually hit a couple balls over the light poles in Sacramento. I'm not worried about his home runs. 36 in 117 games. I'm worried about his strikeouts. I'm not worried about his power or where he hits the ball. I think that he'll hit balls all over the place. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was a fun auction, though.
Very fun. You had like 17 Hall of Famers in your auction. It was a crazy room. It was really fun to watch it for a little bit.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's really incumbent on me finding the right $1 players. And fabbing more pitching. That's the other thing.
We talked about. I love your offense. You need a couple of those $1 pitchers to work out. Like you said, similar to my main event team a little bit.
Yep, similar, but not as extreme. I did get my precious Roman Anthony in that one though too, so I was very happy about that.
That's the thing about an auction is when you have someone precious, you better get them.
Yep, exactly.
So, well, I thank everybody for listening to the pod as always. Everybody for chiming in the chat. It was really active there. We appreciate that. Always fun to talk Vegas, talk our main events. Jeff, we got games this week. This is gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna talk about actual stats and results next week. This is always a really fun few podcasts to do. Next week is always a blast. We've actually seen some real games.
Exactly. I can't wait. I don't know if I like this Wednesday night on Netflix thing, but other than that, I'm excited.
Are we going like NBA path? Like I'm not gonna be able to find the games anymore.
It's possible. I mean,
I literally have to go to like the scoreboard on ESPN and figure out where the Warriors play every time because I follow this closely, more closely than 90%. I can't find the games.
Yeah. And I know it's listed and you can track it down if you really try.
Of course. Yes.
Like I don't subscribe to season pass for NBA. So that's on me. So
I do. And I still can't find the game.
Yeah. Oh, that is tough. That's a tough look.
Because when they're on Amazon or NBC, they're not on the package. So it's actually legit hard to find sometimes.
Well, like the Friday night Apple games and that I did not like. The early Sunday morning Apple game I didn't like. Or no, it wasn't Apple. It was something else. It was Roku or something like that.
Yeah, as Paul would say, you have like 8 services here. It's gonna be frustrating to figure out at first, but we get a lot of games on, so it'll be fun. Looking forward to that. Except for on Friday when some random guy comes in and my closer doesn't come, and some random guy comes in. We'll have some new closers by the next weekend. That when that door opens in the 9th inning and some saves, we're gonna have some teams where we don't know who's gonna save games. It's gonna be a big thing.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it is, and I'm really looking forward to the angst as well as the exultation.
That is part of the joy of it. So it's a lot of fun, but I appreciate everybody listening. Jeff, thanks for doing this. It's always fun to talk baseball. Good to see you this weekend. I enjoyed the drive there, the drive back. Always a lot of fun. You, me, and Vlad Sedler and Tim Schuler. Always a fun time in the car. So it's always one of the highlights of the year is that weekend.
That drive goes by so quickly. It's the same amount of physical time, but it just. Boom.
We got in the last freeway, just like the last half hour of the drive for people that don't live in LA. And I felt like we had just left. I'm like, oh, we're getting on the free. It's crazy how fast it went. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening. We will look forward to talking to you next Sunday. We got some real games to talk about. Should be a lot of fun. Hope it was a really good first fantasy week. We'll be talking at you next Sunday night. Take care.